What up, everybody? This is Jason Zombie Collector, and I picked up a smattering of Andre the Giant 1985 Topps cards. Most of these are in really good shape. I was doing this dollar searches on the bay, surfing on the bay with my boogie board, and I picked up some. I think some of these might have been worth like a couple dollars for shipping because it's a group of 5 cards. But I had fun. Andre the Giant was my favorite wrestler growing up. I mean, it was him, Jake the Snake Roberts, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, but Andre the Giant and Junkyard Dog, they kind of had they were like at the top. But Andre the Giant was this, as a kid, if you don't understand how huge Andre the Giant was, when he turned heel, it was devastating. I've said this in other videos. It was like traumatizing. I had like PTSD from the experience. And, he never really ever came away from being a heel on TV until he kind of faded into obscurity. I believe he kind of wrestled a little bit towards like the mid-90s-ish. But he was in like really bad shape. He was obviously on his way out the door and also sickly. But anyways, it was kind of tough to see him turn heel. And that was kind of like the last memories I have of him was a handful of pretty big matches. And if you go back and watch those matches now, I mean, Andre the Giant is doing hardly anything. He's random headbutt. He might be able to get his leg up for a running. The guy has to run into his leg and he knocks him down. He might pick you, but he can pick you up. But then most of the time he's like laying up against the ropes trying not to fall down. And it's just really unfortunate. But when you're a kid, he's like 7'4". I mean, he's just a giant, literally, compared to these guys that are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", and he's still 4 or 5 centimeters taller than them. So, as a kid, you're just like, you're just mesmerized by that. So with that being said, let's do this. You got Jimmy the Superfly Snuka with Andre the Giant. Here, 85, it said ready to fly. Jimmy Superfly Snuka uses Andre the Giant as a springboard. Snuka flies through the air and lands on his opponents with smashing force. Once this happens, the match is usually over. So there's the first one. The next one up here, and I remember this match. I mean, this could have happened more than once, but this was with Big John Studd. Right here, where Andre gets tied up in the ropes. And I remember this happening because him and King Kong Bundy would like take on Andre the Giant, and Andre the Giant would have like Hogan sometimes. Sometimes he'd have other, this is when he was still a babyface. Would be on his team as tag teams, and they were the only 2 guys that were big enough to really fight against Andre that was realistic. And apparently, Andre didn't like that Big John Studd was, kind of as big and tough looking as he was. So a lot of times they would get into like more like stiff fighting, like they would hit each other and like, being stiff on those punches and kicks, which is a term that the wrestlers used to be like, they don't pull their punches, like they're kind of landing hard shots. And Andre the Giant is one of those guys who did not like feeling like he was upstaged by other big men. So there you have it. And so he let Big John Studd know. So Big John Studd has Andre the Giant tangled up in the ropes. Andre, however, never is down for very long. And this is true. This is true. So there's that. Next up is the pile up. Right there you have Andre the Giant doing a pop. One of his moves was basically sitting on you, which, kind of became famous because, Yokozuna did a similar thing where he would just sit on somebody or just like run in and smack, crush them against the ropes or just sit on them in the middle of the ring. And then Rikishi had something where he was like, gave you the old stinker. He just shoved his sweaty cheeks in your face and dance around in your mouth and stuff. So Andre the Giant was kind of like, I think, what I remember seeing as the guy just sits on you. Just shove you right down on the ground or in the corner and his butt to just run his butt up against you. Kind of strange as a move that would actually hurt someone. What a scene. Andre, pro wrestling's friendliest giant, is literally the man on top in this particular bout. So there you go here. Whoops. Make sure. And there you have that. Next up is you have Giants in Action. Again, Andre with Big John Studd. And it says Andre the Giant and Big John Studd got at it in a battle of giants. The 2 are arch enemies. Stud claims he is wrestling's true giant, even though Andre is bigger. So there you go. This is what happens when I try to read sideways and then turn it kind of, cockeyed like that. But there you go. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying a moment ago where, Andre did not like Big John Studd kind of claiming he was a true giant. And, Andre the Giant still was able to move around a lot here in the 80s. But by the late 80s and definitely the early 90s, he wasn't doing much. He couldn't do anything. He just had gotten so big, so heavy, and in such bad health that he just essentially just kind of walked around the ring, leaned up against the ropes, leaned against the, the corners, and just kind of let people come to him, and he would do some of his moves, and that's about it. And the last one's just epic. This again goes back to kind of him being more athletic in the early to mid 80s. Kick to the face. Kick to the face. So Andre the Giant hauls off with a big kick to the face. Being kicked by Andre is worse than being kicked by a mule, which is probably true. His feet are twice as big as most. So there you go, definitely. Let me try to get that a little bit closer there. But yeah, I would assume getting kicked by Andre. I've heard, if you watch anything, just spend a few minutes going through, YouTube and looking up Andre the Giant stories, shoot interviews. There are so many out there. This kind of really makes you go, wow. Andre the Giant, dude. Legit guy. You did not want to mess with him in real life. There was very few guys who wanted to mess with Andre in real life. Which, again, that's more self-preservation. 7'4" dude. He don't tear apart most people. So, there you have it. But one of my favorite wrestlers, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. Hope you all enjoyed the video. So, here's my 5. I got this whole lot, I believe, including shipping for $3 or $4. So, it's less than $1 a card. So, until next time, guys. Peace.